Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. John Riggio, our dear friend, is back joining us as an architect and CEO of his own company based out of New Jersey, but world renowned for the work he's done and also for the tennis he's played. There's a lot to this man. Let me have him do his introduction. And I know today we're going to kind of focus on that sporty side of you and talk more about the tennis and all that you've accomplished in your life with that and your trip to Japan as well. So there's a lot. John, please say hello.
Yes, hi, how are you? My name is John Riggio, and today I want to continue talking about some tennis. I was thinking about the past, and I thought of some really important things to really piece together what I was talking about. I think the one most important thing was at the time when I was playing with the Perot Group. They bought my contract at the time. And at the time, that contract was bought for 25. It was really a gross of $30 million. They just used to use the term 25 million. And what happened was at that time, usually in tennis, they don't like to use the natural name of a player.
Okay.
Because it becomes a problem. Yes, it becomes a problem with things like promotions, advertising, things like that. It's really because it's pro tennis. They're really doing things, making money off of it. And it's also for your safety too, that people aren't going to start looking up your natural name and things like that. So at the time, they went through some names.
Okay.
And the first name that we went through was to use the name John Weiss.
Ooh, and very Miami Vice sounding, yes.
Yes, but that name was pretty good. A lot of the other pro players, they liked the name because they like the name. Like when we're playing, I'm gonna really clamp down on them, playing a game and win the game. And so the name John Weiss, they sort of liked the name. I think, but what happened was in the first early games I played with them, I was using that name, John Weiss. But then as it went through the Perot company, they decided to have me use the name Carlos Scipio. And this name, very interestingly, was derived for a number of reasons. It was really derived off myself, my personality. And they liked the name Carlos Scipio because originally, at one point in 1987, when I got to playing at a certain level, I really need to have backing from people. And one group of people who really always are interested in tennis is really people who are royals, the royal families, things like that. So through channeling with the tennis center, I was able to meet someone who was interested in backing my game, was really interested in my tennis playing, was really the Princess Savoy. And so his name is, let me just put it here for a second. I want to make sure I have it correct. Is Mr. Filiberto Manuel, which was the Princess Savoy at the time. And I met him there at my court 33, and he knighted me and talked to him for a few minutes. And I think at that time I explained this meeting. I was able to play with the famous player Sergio Tacchini, which is very nice. And I won the match, of course. And so from that point, now getting back into the year where Perot bought my contract, the name Carlos or Carlo is really like a name that I would usually be called in Italy. So if I was to visit Italy, they wouldn't use the name John. They don't really like the name John for me. They look at me, they say,
really? Yeah, you're not a John.
Really... Wow. Yes, they would use the name Carlo.
Okay.
So this is how that name Carlo ended up becoming Carlos. So then the next name, Scipio, was really just like a synonym name. It was a similar name, but I think Scipio was really a famous name in ancient times. He was an ancient general. And so that name was really good, compared to my name, Riggio, which has a similar spelling to it. So they like Scipio Hazami. So then that was good. And when I went to the team to play with Perot, the the local manager there and the Perot group, they took the name Carlo Scipio, and they sort of just made it like a Texan name. So it's really like I visited Italy and maybe went and moved over to Texas. So then my name is now Carlo Scipio. And that's really how they put that name together. The name is really just for me. And that's really how it worked. It's a nice name. And in fact, they did some very serious marketing studies at that time. Because at the time I had a spokesman and the pro company, really spending a lot of money on my contract, really did some research on marketing that name. And that name went over very well with the group of people that they were marketing there. I think a lot of marketing might have been going through Texas. And so that is very good. And I think I was researching some tennis training and some coaching videos. And just by chance, similar to the Tony Roach video, I was watching the video and they were talking about some players. Now, this group of players they were playing in Spain a lot and in Latin America. And they were talking about players that really can hit the ball really good. And they were talking about Guillermo Villas can hit the ball really good. Talking about some backhand hits, talking about Rafael Nadal. So both of those players are from two different generations. One's a little older, one's much younger. And they're also talking about hitting the ball like Scipio. And that's really myself. So I was watching the video and they were referencing my name. So that was pretty good. I think that video, it's on a USPTA approved video, and it's also approved by European Tennis Association. And I'll see if I can get a clip of that.
Yeah, and by the way, what is the tennis website too?
Oh yes, I have my tennis website here. I could share that with you right now. So let's go and see if we could share the screen. Okay, so let's go over to the tennis web page. See where it is. Okay, let's do this here. Okay, there it is. Okay, so let's share this. There's no sound on it. Okay, can you see the page here?
Oh, I see it. We are good. Yes.
Okay, so this page, I have some previous names listed here. Now, the name John Weiss, I didn't add it to the list. I could add it later.
Sure.
But as I just remembered this story, so between the name John Vanderbilt and Carlos Scipio, there was another name in there, John Weiss. And I think John Weiss was pretty good for the USA. I think that kind of name was good. They had the show Miami Vice on at the time too. And that wasn't too bad. But Carlos Scipio was the next name, and the team or the sponsors in Japan really continued that name, Carlos Scipio. My name wasn't changed again. So this name is my name, and that name is whenever I am really sort of like an actor on scene, I would use that name. So that is the different names I have. And I think this page, I just went through a whole history, gave a little explanation of my tennis, and showed some names, some things about my tennis playing going down here. I remember some of my ATP records. And I just did a summary of how I started off, just explaining how I started off with my own tennis club. And this is really what gave me the attention for people to see me playing. And then from that, they can notice I had a great ability to play tennis. And then this goes down through the history of tennis, going through court 33,
Who inspired you to start playing the sport?
Well, really, I started with my family. My mother and father, they used to like to play some tennis. And I started playing with my family,
Hmm.
myself, my brothers, and my mother and father. We went down to the local tennis court, and my father gave me some tennis lessons. And I think they could tell I could hit the ball really fast, even at a young age.
Yeah.
So at a young age, I think my father looked at me and thought I could become a pro tennis player. And so this started off, and then the next continuation of that idea was when I wanted this certain Prince tennis racket that was very popular at the time, and my mother bought it at a local pro shop. The only thing is, when I used it the
Hmm.
first day, I bent the whole racket. And when she brought the racket back, the pro shop owner, Patrick Mulrooney, he looked at that racket and he can tell in 2 seconds that I was going to become a tennis pro. So my mother came back with three
Aw.
rackets instead. She gave me a brand new racket plus two other Prince rackets. Oh, no, it wasn't Prince. There was two other rackets. They weren't Prince. And so I came back with three rackets and I was really happy about it. And then it took a short time, but my skills did develop. And then the next one that really saw my playing was the in my middle school. I went to a school that has a middle school and a high school are in one building, and they have a tennis administrator there, and he looked at my playing when I created my tennis club, and he thought the same thing, that I could become a tennis pro. So he gave me a chance to become a tennis pro, and that is when I was able to really make it in pro sports. I was able to go past the ITF level very quickly and go to the ATP level. And he gave me a ranking of 1500. And I think I had said before, very interesting, I signed a contract
Hmm.
with him and the US Tennis Center. And that made me a really like an official US player. And that was very important to give me a rank. And that was very good. And I even got a vacation to Puerto Rico with my family. This made us where we took the first plane flight in my family, went on a
Aw.
747 there, and we went there. And uh, the the plane flight, very interesting, was really only for people who were really like usually in the army, other government services. And my mother was there, and she couldn't believe what was happening because I had explained on the plane flight. My mother was wondering why everyone is really like in the government on the airplane flight. And I told her that I signed a contract with the US Tennis Center and I'm an official, US player.
Wow.
And she was really impressed with that. She really couldn't believe it. And but yeah, she was really the one who went to the pro shop, and she was helping me going back and forth getting the rackets and things like that. And so that was very good. And so from there, my playing did continue. And the next step after that was picking up a sponsor, and I was able to pick up the sponsor, Prince Racket Company. And that's when I was able to showcase their rackets. The idea was also I could continue to advertise their rackets and things like that. And they supported me getting me into all the tournaments. The tournaments were very expensive, and they were uh, put me through those things, and very good. And then at that point, that was the time when they first was starting the thing with the Olympics.
Ah, yeah.
And I think that was the year
Yeah.
when they were recruiting people to play in the Olympics. That the only
My
catch
goodness.
was you can't play in the Olympics if you're a pro player. So the recruiter was asking me if
Really?
yes, you can't play if you obtain more than $3,000 worth of equipment. And obviously, I told them, no, I have much more than $3,000 worth of equipment. They were giving me $1,000 rackets, $1,000 sweatsuits, and all kinds of supplies like that. And then, of course, they were also paying for those tournaments, which have a large dollar value to them,
Yeah.
maybe $20,000 each. So at that point, I did make the Olympics, but I did not play in it. And that's pretty good, it turned out, because there was some controversy later on in that they might have read in the newspaper. But that was the group of players I was with. So
Yeah.
from there, that was very good. And then from that is just before I then moved from my courts in Jericho, where at the courts in Jericho, all the best players were coming down to play me.
Mm-hmm.
And which was really only very few players in the world had that ability, where all the players would come to play them. And from there, I then moved over to court 33. And I think if you look on the screen, I have a picture of court 33.
Oh my gosh, let me see.
I was able to look around and find it. What it shows here, this is the old map of the tennis center. And right here in writing on the right-hand side, it says court 33 over here. And this map is right before they made the courts part of the tennis center. So they call that practice courts. But when I was there, it was made part of the tennis center. And it is listed here as court 33. So because I think today, if you were to look at the court arrangement, the numbers, there's no way to find it. It's completely renovated. The whole place has changed around. But when I was playing, it's shown here on the map, court 33. So that's where I used to play, and I had my own court there. And they were even giving me opportunities to fill up the court with other players, maybe some students, things like that. And from court 33, I then went over to Ali Pond, which is this here. Ali Pond today is the largest bubble in the whole United States. So that tennis bubble they made the whole building and tennis center for me, has continued to grow into the largest tennis bubble in the USA. And then this here, from that, is this picture is the Ali Pond, which is not Ali Pond, excuse me, is the Sutton East Tennis Center. And this shows here, I think here it says Sutton East, Vanderbilt, Yorkville. And of course, my sponsor there was Gloria Vanderbilt was the lead sponsor. She was the one who was really the person who had the name visible to everyone, that she was my sponsor. And I was playing there on my own tennis court. My bubble that they had at Ali Pond, they moved it inside this complex. This complex is very large. It's the largest bubble in Manhattan, and it has bubbles inside this. It's one block large. It's still there. You can go. It's under the 59th Street Bridge. It's a very large complex. And they still have the entrance here. This entrance was made just for me, the Sutton East entrance. You walk in there, and my own private courts. On the other side of the block there, inside that large structure of a bubble, they have the public courts. So they have the public courts, and mine was the private courts over here. So that was really amazing, and this really gave me a big move up in the tennis, where this is a very stable location, and I was playing there for a while, and things were very good. And then at some point, my tennis was sold over to Perot.
Wow.
And one interesting thing was also this: if you see in Times
Square, yeah.
You see this grandstand. So this grandstand was originally over here next to the tennis bubble. It was on the back side of the tennis bubble. Yes. And one interesting thing about that grandstand is that it was designed by an artist from Europe. And I think they said he was either from France or Germany. I don't remember his exact location, but that was designed specially. And I remember some of the sponsors and people following my tennis, they were used to sit on those bleachers, and they told me how they look and everything, that they were painted red. And it was, so what they did at some point is, because of code reasons
Wow.
with the building department in New York City and the occupancy, they ended up taking that set of bleachers, and it was sold over to the Times Square Development Company. And they ended up, I was reading that they had renovated it a little, they moved it over, and they put it
Yeah.
into Times Square. So that bleacher, even though it was bought and constructed for me and designed for me, it took on its own future
That
where
is
they
awesome.
didn't just throw it in the garbage. They ended up selling it and then moving it over there, and then it ended up sitting there in Times Square. And that's good. I think one thing about seeing that they have someone here that is with the Catholic Church in front of the bleacher, which sort of gives me a memory of back then. I used to call my local parish and I used to update them about my tennis playing. And I invited the priest to come down and visit
Aw.
my location of playing, and he did come down and show up and take a look around. And they, so that was very interesting. And so that was interesting. And then this here is at the time they were, instead of having the large grandstand, they decided to build a stadium. And the stadium was based off on the specifications of what they call Roland Garros. Roland Garros is a top tournament in Europe.
Okay.
And this is they had the plans to build the stadium, and they started construction of it, but it was never completed. And what happened was that stadium, when Perot was the lead to buy over my contract, they offered him to complete the stadium and
Okay.
then name it after him, called Perot Stadium. So the stadium originally was going to have another name before it, but at that point, with the contract deal for $30 million gross dollars, they were going to include finishing the stadium and giving it under his name. So that was pretty big. And that was the year that he was really starting to run for president of the United States of America. So he at that point, I think that wasn't too bad as publicity to have Perot Stadium, but I think they didn't really bother with the
Mm-hmm.
stadium. For some reason, tennis overall isn't really a stadium game. They don't really bother with stadium, usually some bleachers like the grandstand, things like that. And they so the stadium, I think a lot of people today would probably think the stadium was a really big thing, that you really want the stadium. But in fact, the Perot group of investors in my tennis, they did not take the offer to continue that stadium, but they could have continued, and he could have the stadium in his name. That was very interesting. And so that's one part of it. And I think with the Perot team, with playing, of course, with each tennis player, there's always a few different nice items tennis players usually have, like status symbols, things like that. And I think one of them is cars. And this here is a
Yeah.
picture of the McLaren F1. Now, this is the car that I was able to get the money to lease this car for 6 months. But the only thing is, this car is so fast that it requires a training course to have the car. So with the Perot group, they were able to have the salesman call me. And what they did is, since I needed the car right away, he was nice enough to have the car brought over to my courts at Old Westbury, and he parked the car there. That it's really my car, and that was really a symbol of my playing. And this is
Perfect. We're going to pick up on that symbol of playing with the card. Tell us the website. We got to take that quick break, and
okay.
can't wait.
So
We're going
this,
to pick up on the car. So remind
so
us
the
how we
easiest,
could reach you.
the easiest way to find my webpage is you go on to Facebook and you look up John Riggio, pro tennis player. And there on the Facebook page, you could like the page. You can go on to where it says the intro, and it shows my
Oh, there's
link to my
the link to the
webpage.
website. Perfect. All right, guys, we'll be right back. We're going to pick back up on the site. We'll be right back with more.
Hello, my name is John Riggio. I'm the CEO of John Riggio RA Architect LLC. I provide architect services in the New York City metropolitan area. That includes New York City, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. My areas are specifically Long Island, the 5 boroughs of New York City, Westchester, Yonkers. In New Jersey, it is North Jersey, Central Jersey, and South Jersey. In Philadelphia, the areas are the Philadelphia metropolitan area. You can find out more information about my company at www.johnriggio.com. That's spelled JOHNRIGGIO.com. And there you will find out a description of my work. It shows a portfolio, pictures of the different job types. And I also have my contact information there. It shows my business address. From there, you can contact me and we can discuss your project. First, we will make an initial consultation. And then from there, we will then go over designing your project and then constructing your project. So I hope to hear from you soon.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back with John Riggio, our pro tennis player and architect, man who wears many hats. And it's awesome. We're walking down memory lane here today, and he actually was able to pull up some great facts that are on the website. By the way, we're going to go back to that McLaren. So hold on. So you personally couldn't afford the McLaren, but wait, the company brought it? Did they buy it for you? Did they let you drive in it? What was the deal or the arrangement with that?
Yes, I talked to the lease company, and he really liked the idea of the pro tennis and everything. I described to him, and what he did was he brought the car over to my courts and parked it there for free, and he just left it there for a little while. So when the other players would show up, they'd see my car, and they knew it was a symbol that I am an excellent player, and it's like a status symbol. And so they end up leaving the car there till we're finished there at the Westbury campus, and then he removed the car. So we just stayed there for a while, and it was pretty good. And so that's really what happened with that car.
Oh, amazing. That looks like the car. Was that the one? I'm not a big car person like as a girl, but in the Wolf of Wall Street, is that like that? Was that like a Lamborghini or that's the McLaren that he banged
Yes, it
up?
is. It is. It's very expensive. I think at the time it's like a car that's maybe $350,000. This is a very expensive car.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So let's go back to it. Again, your Facebook page, go to John Riggio, pro tennis player. What was it?
Yes, just some very simple John Riggio pro tennis player on Facebook. And then from there, you could find the link to my webpage that describes all the different things. And I have all of the videos that I've made, and they're all here on my Facebook page. So you can watch all the videos, and that's very good. I have some pictures of different things like some old sport equipment and things like that. I think if we were to just go back onto the this page, let me just share this. If we just go back on this page, I think from here I can. This is a aerial photo of the Old Westbury campus. And the Old Westbury campus, what happened is the pro group, they were able to use this whole set of tennis courts. There was another 2 courts over here years ago, And they were also able to use the facility for the athletic center. They would use the lockers, the showers, things like that. So all visiting players were able to go here. On the opposite side of this building, the pro group set up a tent structure, and in there is where they had their tennis managers were there, their tennis coaches, and that stayed there as we played the tennis. And what happened at this tennis center was I initially started playing with the pro group, who he had some sponsored players already, and I was playing with them. So I started off playing with them for a while, and at that point, that's when I used the name John Weiss. And
Ah,
they started to get some players off site. A lot of them were coming from the tennis center. Other ones are coming from the ATP tour. I started to play with them, and they liked that name, John Weiss. But then during that time, it was switched over to Carlos Scipio. So then
okay.
in the Carlos Scipio name, I was using that, and things really started getting going. I started to play all the teams in the Pacific. I played the Japan team, Indonesia, all of the different countries there in the Pacific. And I played amazingly. I didn't lose too many matches. And then from there, I started to play some of the tournaments that were coming through the U.S. Tennis Center. So all of the tennis players that you see locally that were in the news at that time, they all came and played, and I won the tennis tournaments. I was an amazing player, and I think John McEnroe was always impressed with my playing. He was there. He told me that I
Oh,
was playing much higher than himself, and that I was the center of attention where everyone was coming to play me. And so they were all very impressed with that, and I did very good. I won all the tournaments, and I think with the Japan team, there was a couple players, the coach and like one player that were a little angry, like getting a little jealous, and in fact, they did have to do something about them. But the whole event with the Japan team went very good, and so by the end of me playing the players there, uh, the Mitsubishi team, they decided to buy my contract, and they bought the contract for
wow.
$100 million. Yes, so this is
Oh
the
my
largest
gosh.
contract in tennis at the time. I surpassed Guillermo Villas was the previous highest contract in tennis.
Aw.
And so I think I said another show, but in the newspapers, the biggest sport contracts at the time were people like Michael Jordan and Jose Canseco and myself were the highest players. So I had the $100 million contract, and then that contract of $100 million. A short time later, really a few years later, it was enlarged by adding on some new lead investors. And one of the lead investors was Bernard Tapie. Bernard Tapie was the owner of Adidas. He lives in France, in Europe,
Okay.
and he decided to invest in the contract. At this time, I had to go back and get the help from my lawyer, Hillary Clinton, her office, and this whole deal really went ahead. And I think the whole deal really went ahead because I was calling the Mitsubishi corporate office. I took my chance to ask to call them, and I talked to them, and by telling them and sort of describing how the whole thing works with the pro tennis contracts and investors, they started to catch on, and they were able to really get the Bernard Tapie to invest in my tennis. And Bernard Tapie also was able to get another one of his investors.
Mm-hmm.
That took me a while to remember, but he was able to get Reebok.
Okay. Wow.
Reebok at the time was in Britain, and I think he was really a business partner, friends with Reebok. So Reebok was able to become my lead investor. So they really made it where Reebok was the lead investor at that point. I didn't write it down on my webpage yet, but I'm just saying it now. So this is the first time I'm really divulging that information. and they were the lead investor. And so then my contract went up to $120 million, which continued to stay as the highest contract in tennis, which is they were really impressed with. The Mitsubishi office, I was talking to one of their representatives, and they confirmed that they were getting into the whole thing with learning about the tennis contracts and everything. They checked on the tennis contract. It was still the largest tennis contract in tennis, and that was really good. And I think at this time also my playing was more developed where I had stand-in that was able to make appearances as Mototron. And then also I had a spokesman. Now the first spokesman I had is also a spokesman for some other entertainers. So he was my first spokesman. Then we changed spokesman and had the next spokesman after that. And he was really so happy to get this job as my spokesman. And it was really good. I think my sponsors were really happy about it. And he continued as my spokesman. And so it was really, as far as my visibility was concerned, there were really 3 people that were making myself visible. And they were going through all different avenues. In fact, after I got married, I visited my in-laws, and they were all the way up in China. And it turns out their cousin, who's really like their best player in the whole province there, and was really like a pro player, she had my player card. She had my tennis player card and knew my whole tennis history. So this whole thing with the getting the word out, putting myself on ESPN, world television, all throughout China, Pacific, she knew my whole playing career, and it was really amazing. So I think that was proof, and she did show me the card that she had. She still had it there. So that was, I think, good proof that my playing was getting out and everything. And I think one thing also with playing over in the Pacific and everything was I was able to help one player. One player was born in the Philippines. He's playing with the Japan team, and he really took to my lessons. Since I beat the whole Japan team, and they couldn't beat me, and they were playing all the other players from the U.S. Tennis Center at the time, I started to teach some of them some tennis. And one player that I described, he really took to that playing. And when they went back to Japan, he really started to make some waves because he was able to beat some top players that they sent over to Japan, players that were in the that came from Europe, came from the US, and that really made big waves where my sponsors gave me a phone call and told me about this, and it was really good. And I think from that also exposed that I was even more of a winning player. It exposed all kinds of things that were going on where some people were trying to sneak in that they won and things like that. And this really pushed me up to where I was really more widely recognized that I was really the top player. I was really number one, and number one obviously was reflected in my contract. Because when I was playing tournaments and matches that were really top ranked tournaments, ATP tournaments, and they really had great value to them. And that's really what kept me on top. They didn't have me play things like independent tournaments, things that were really even like ITF, which was considered the minor leagues. They played only ATP, and that's really kept me on top of the game, and that worked very good. So I think that is what was happening. So I think recently I was able to get to Japan, and I think the whole thing with the communication issue, even though they made Reebok the lead, so Mitsubishi is no longer the lead in my contract. Really, Reebok is really the lead, and Bernard Tapie is sort of. I did say his name, and that he owned Adidas, but really the Reebok, what is the lead in the contract? And so they had trouble contacting me. And I think that has to do with the whole thing with the telephones and I was getting a little older. I wasn't living at the same location anymore. And I think at this time, trying to communicate also started to develop a whole thing where I received some interesting phone calls. Like it was really getting much later in my career. It was going like all the way to like the year 1998. And I was getting phone calls to maybe appear on different TV shows and things like that. And I think at that time I was also learning how to try to decipher which phone calls are really authentic, what things I was getting in the mail were authentic, what things were really maybe something just like that was either maybe a fraud or a joke or things like that. I think some phone calls I talked about were going on the Tonight Show, Saturday Night Live, a Morton Downey Jr. show, and other sport people that I had on there, like Brandon Steiner, and did interview with him. And then so I think at that time I was still involved with my pro tennis career and things like that. So that was very interesting. And so I was really at that point was still trying to hold on with the tennis career, but I think it was difficult to really continue to communicate. I think what happened with the team with Reebok in Japan is that there was some problems from a distance getting the tour to really go ahead. They really had to have a lot of people here in person. I think from the experiences that were successful, they had to have some people in person, maybe sitting at the court side, and that would really get the thing going. I think doing it too far away, where no one is here except myself, just going to a tennis court. Unfortunately, no one really wanted to show up for that reason. And even though they officially would lose the match and I would win the match, that didn't really help that much. So that was one problem. And so I think recently I was able to get over to Japan, and I went over to some of the areas that they play tennis, and I have some interesting pictures of tennis. I think I went over to Japan. First, I was over in the north part of Japan. Let me see if I can share this here. Let's stop the share of the other one. Let me just show this here. Okay, let me open this first. Okay, good. Let's see if I can share this here. Okay, good. Okay, let me share this. Okay, this works good. Can you see that full picture?
Now I can, yes. Oh,
Okay, so
look at you.
this is myself in Japan,
Oh,
and
amazing.
it was very nice to get around Japan. They had the 7-Eleven there. It's pretty good. It's a nice area. I say this area in Tokyo is very international from what they told me. They're used to everyone just coming, walking around and everything. And this is one of their courts. Now this court is full of people, but it's 103 degrees outside. This was a very hot day. They had a heat wave. We had the heat wave here, but they didn't mind playing over here. They were all playing. And yeah, this is my tennis racket, and see the Japanese writing here. And like these courts, you have to reserve them to play. Can you see the video moving?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so this is them playing here. I was just looking at, they're pretty good players. These are an advanced set of players playing here at these courts. And this, what they're playing on is a imitation grass rug. And I ended up playing on this kind of surface over in the indoor courts I'll show you in a minute. So this here is the north part near Sugamo. And
Wow.
this here, so played here. This is like the building next to the tennis courts, just some park. There's the tennis courts again. That's myself. And there's some ice cream.
That was gonna say, is that ice cream? Yay!
Yeah, they have nice ice cream dispensers. So this here is on their
Wow.
railway, which is typical of anywhere.
But
And we took the rail over to the Mitsubishi. I went over to the Mitsubishi center, and this is the Mitsubishi center over here.
oh wow.
So this here is, it says here, yeah, Japan Sport Facilities.
I'm like, can you read that? I can't. So I can't.
Yes, it says Mitsubishi
You
Yowakai
don't okay.
Sugamo Sports Center. So this is really the sports center, and I think I was there, and I think the pro tennis isn't really too visible. If you were there, like I was explaining, they don't really want to have the pro tennis too visible because everyone's going to come over, say they want to stop playing pros. Some people might even be there to harm the players. So this whole thing with the pro,
Wow.
it isn't too visible, but the Mitsubishi Sports Center is shown right here very clearly. And so this is okay. So this is the sport building where they're in here. And yeah, I went in there, pro shop. It's written in English. And this is just the office there. Okay, so this is the north part of Sugamo. And but the pro facilities, and this is Mitsubishi over here. And this here, this is so this here has this isn't translated in English. Okay, so this is the going back through the railway. And this is getting on the train for the railway. Okay, so then this, let me show you the south part. Now the south part of Japan. Okay, let me just open this. Let me share it real quick. Okay, so this is the south part, and this worked out much better because this is really part of the hotel, the Prince Hotel there in the south part of Tokyo, and they have this is where the Olympics, they are housing people in the Olympics. A lot of these facilities were used for the Olympics, and they were had the tennis facilities here, so they're pretty good tennis facilities. And this here shows you tennis shop and the counter. This is the outside of the building, right next to the hotel complex. And this here shows the indoor. This is the grass carpet. So I played here. This is a picture of me here. And so this is the
Whoa.
facility. It's a very nice building.
Well, hey, what is the flooring in the tennis court? What is
It's
that?
really it's an imitation. It's a carpet. It's really carpet that
Really?
they just painted looking similar to grass. It
Ah,
isn't the plastic imitation grass. It's really carpet.
okay, good to know.
So it's a very nice surface. It's good. The temperature in here is pretty good. Even though it's very hot outside, the temperature is good. And then this here is just showing a picture of myself here. And I think here they have the usual things there. I noticed they have Friday night tennis. And this here is just the tennis court. That's my daughter there. And then this
Oh,
here is just a video of me playing.
I
So
missed
this
your
is just,
daughter. I didn't see her.
yes, I see. Oh yeah, I don't remember this.
It's okay.
That's my daughter there.
Yay.
So she got to play there, and then yeah, it says Friday night tennis right there in English, Friday night tennis. So they have the usual things. You can come play tennis at night, socialize. And then this is just myself playing here on the on here. So let me see if I could just okay, it doesn't turn. Okay, let's go to the next one now. Okay, yeah, so this is another one, a video here. Okay, good. Yeah, so then I was just playing here. And so that's pretty good. And this shows the whole tennis courts. And it was
Amazing.
really good. And so that's pretty good here.
Now, how old is your daughter?
Oh, she's 18 years old.
Is she really good?
She has ability. Yeah, she plays good.
Oh, does she pursue it like you did, or is it just a hobby? Or
It's just a hobby, but she does play pretty good. And yeah, so we were playing here, and I think yeah, I think she plays very good. She can play if she's interested in advancing more, certainly. She has ability. And this is just the inside of that tennis center. It's a very nice tennis center. And then this is some pictures showing Friday night
yeah.
tennis. And this here is in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just a video here. Took some videos of this shows you everyone playing there.
Wow.
It's pretty good. And let's see.
Amazing.
Okay, now this is from my hotel room, and it shows the tennis center complex here. This is on the bottom of the screen. It shows the whole tennis center complex. And here they, right next to the tennis center complex, they also have a whole aquarium that everyone comes to go to the aquarium here. And that's what they have. And then some other interesting things is one where here just by chance they have these expensive cars. So that was good. So it sort of reminded me of years ago when I was playing, always having like an expensive Mercedes Benz sitting next to the courts. And this is right next to the courts. Between the hotel building and the courts, they have these expensive cars here. Maybe it's for the same idea of people playing, and then they really have a very nice, expensive Mercedes Benz. Yes, it's probably very expensive. This here, and they show here's one. This is another one here. So that was very interesting. So this is like right outside between my lobby and the tennis center. They do have the same idea of having some nice cars there. That was just a coincidence, but I thought that was very good. Give me the same feeling of years ago. So this is the same idea. You would see like a car like this, wondering why there's expensive cars sitting there.
Wow. Imagine.
That's
Is there
really,
like a laser like security system around the base there? Like if someone walks to touch it, like does it go, set off an alarm?
no, I see a lot of people just walk past the car there. I see they have one inside the building, one outside there. I don't see anyone touching the car. No, everyone just sort of looks at it. I think most people
They're kinder than Americans. If that was on the street in New York City, I don't know how long it would last. I had to be armed security people there. I would assume.
Yeah, I think a lot of people want to come up here, try to open the doors, look what's inside there. But I think here a lot of people just sort of walk past the car, and this is. So I think here everyone is just walking past the car. But it is very nice. This was good. This was good. I like that. That gave me a feeling of years ago. It was pretty good. So that's really the idea. I think you see like a fancy car there. It's the same exact idea at the different tennis centers. When I started playing past a certain point, they'd always have like a really expensive Mercedes. I think the Mercedes, like I was explaining, is a similar type of car like this. That this was the one I had that they brought me was at Sun East was the black Mercedes, and so I think the type of Mercedes was really something like this. It was really a very special type of car, very expensive, and that is really what they had sent over to me. So that's pretty good. So I think this here.
Awesome. And we still got 2 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
Almost out of time.
Yes. So I think as far as the rest of my page goes, I have the videos on. If you were able to get the link to my webpage, it has all the videos on here also. And it just has a whole chronological description of my tennis playing. Some details I described today, I could add on to there. And I think it was very good. And so if you were to go on there, you could see the different things. I'm still adding information onto my whole chronological description of my whole tennis playing career, and it's very good. It's probably a lot of people would think it's interesting.
Beautiful. Well, did you want to share again the website, how we can reach you? My goodness.
Yes, I think the best thing to do is go onto my Facebook page, which is John Riggio, Pro Tennis Player. That's JOHNRIGGIO, and just write in Pro Tennis Player. And on Facebook, you can log on there, and then you get my link to my webpage, which has a whole chronological list of my playing.
Beautiful. And I want to thank you today for sharing that, especially all those pictures. I love it. It's just like, get to feel like I'm right there with you. But wow. Wow. Now, is there another career path coming for you? I mean, if tennis wasn't it, then architecture was. But no, is there anything else that you're dabbling that you're going to surprise me with next week?
No, I think right now I'm still involved with some tennis playing, and remembering the years. I'd like to share that with people. It's good, and that's really where I am now. there's nothing really new at this time.
Perfect. Well, we want to remind everyone also johnriggio.com if they have any architectural needs as well, right?
Of course, yes.
Perfect. And anything else you want to add before we go?
No, that's about it. But of
Well,
course,
so awesome
everyone's
having you
invited to
here.
go to my Facebook page and look at my career and really see all the different things that took place years ago, and would really like to look at those different
Perfect. Well, thank you
descriptions
again.
of
Pleasure to having
transplant.
you here and awesome picks. We'll talk next week, hopefully soon. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of this not so good weather day, but we'll get through.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.